Hello, I'm Jim Patrick from the Yuma Main Library. Yuma has a rich baseball history, including minor league teams, major league spring training clubs, successful college and high school programs, youth baseball, and more. A baseball town like Yuma is also noted for the loyalty and passion of its fans. This presentation will focus on the various ways Yuma baseball fans have followed the World Series through the years. The first World Series was staged in 1903 between the Boston Red Sox and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Boston prevailed by winning 5 games of the 9-game series. In retrospect, this series was historically significant, but at the time the Yuma newspaper did not print a single word about the 1903 World Series. The photo shows a throng of baseball fans outside the New York Herald newspaper building waiting for updates of a 1911 World Series game between the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Athletics. Before household radios and televisions existed, fans would gather in or outside businesses, which would post scores and updates coming in via ticker tape. A few years later, in Yuma, results from the infamous 1919 Black Sox World Series were posted at the Stag's cigar stand. Duffy Lewis was the star of the 1915 World Series, which saw the Boston Red Sox defeat the Philadelphia Phillies 4-1. Lewis had 8 hits and played spectacular defense in left field, leading the Yuma newspaper to note that Lewis leads them all. Duffy Lewis was something of a Yuma hero, since he had played winter baseball for the Yuma town team during the 1909-1910 season. The 1915 Fall Classic also marked the first occurrence of a U.S. president throwing out the ceremonial first pitch before a World Series game. By the early 1920s, consumers could buy radios, but the U.S. had only a few radio stations at the time, and radio sets like the one in the Sanguinetti ad were expensive and difficult to use. For this reason, baseball fans continued to get their World Series results at locations like Yuma Drug, which offered inning-by-inning updates. It's hard to imagine today, but an even bigger sporting event than the World Series took place on September 22, 1927, the heavyweight boxing rematch between Jack Dempsey and Gene Tunney. Tunney won the fight with the aid of an infamous long count in the 7th round, which enabled him to get up off the canvas. On the day of the famous fight in Chicago, Yuma boxing fans had a chance of hearing radio updates at the Marcus Auto Shop or visiting the Oasis Club in Algodones, where they could dine and dance while waiting for the telegraph updates from the fight. By 1934, 60% of U.S. households had radios. The Philco Baby Grand was a best-selling model for several years, and it remains popular with today's collectors of vintage radios. By the time this local ad appeared in September 1937, deluxe cabinet radios were being marketed as status symbols, in much the same way luxury automobiles are advertised today. Yuma's first radio station, KUMA, went on the air in 1932. By the late 30s, KUMA was affiliated with the Mutual Broadcasting Company, which offered live play-by-play coverage of the World Series games. In the 1950s, it seemed like the World Series matchup was always between the New York Yankees and the Brooklyn Dodgers. The 1955 series saw the Dodgers finally get the better of the Yankees in an exciting 7-game battle, which was the first World Series to be broadcast on a Yuma television station. KIVA-TV had gone on the air 2 years earlier in 1953 as Yuma's first TV station. The 1956 World Series featured the greatest individual performance in series history, Don Larsen's perfect game against the Dodgers. The article mentions that Yuma high school students were able to watch the action on television during their lunch hour. It also notes that several teachers were allowing students to hear the radio broadcast during their classes. For better or worse, this is an experience that has not been available to students for several years. Although the first World Series night game did not take place until 1971, it did not take long for the tradition of World Series day games to end. In fact, it has now been 33 years since a World Series game has been played in the daytime. Color television had been around since the 1950s, but even in 1960, most U.S. households still had black and white sets. The following year, 1961, saw the premiere of Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color, a program which has been credited with spurring a wave of color television purchases. The ad on the right states, "No gambling, please," but those who bet on the underdog Pittsburgh team to defeat the New York Yankees in the 1960 series made out like pirates. Yuma was the San Diego Padres' spring training home for the first 25 years of the team's existence. For this reason, there will always be a large contingent of Padres fans in Yuma. Unfortunately, the team's performance for the first several years was so poor that the thought of the Padres ever making the World Series was more a dream than a realistic goal. That finally changed in 1984, a magical season highlighted by Steve Garvey's home run in Game 4 of the National League Championship Series against the Cubs.
Deep right field, way back, cutter going back to the wall, it's gone! Home run Garvey, and there will be tomorrow!
The first two games of the 1984 World Series were played in San Diego. The Yuma fans in the photo were fortunate to attend Game 1 in person. Other Yumans gathered in establishments like the Stardust to cheer on their team. The only San Diego victory in the series came in Game 2, so sadly for Padres fans, the final 3 games were played in Detroit. In 1998, the Padres again reached the World Series, but this was 5 years after the team had moved its spring training base from Yuma to Peoria, Arizona. And just as the '84 team had to face off against the powerful Detroit Tigers, the '98 Padres were overmatched by a dominant New York Yankees ball club. The Arizona Diamondbacks made the World Series only 4 years into their existence. In addition to being Arizona's team, the Diamondbacks had a connection to Yuma due to the city's hosting the club's 1997 spring training for minor league prospects. In the 2001 World Series, the D-backs defeated the New York Yankees in 7 dramatic games. This was an emotional series for the entire nation, since it was held shortly after the September 11 terrorist attacks. The 2020 World Series will be played in the middle of a different kind of crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic. With an abbreviated regular season and no fans in the stands, it is certain that the 2020 version of the Fall Classic will be unique. Hopefully this will be the only World Series where it will not be possible to take me out to the ball game.